Welcome to FO Talks. With me is Sebastian Schäffer, the director of the Institute for the Danube region and Central Europe, a think tank based in Vienna. Today we unpack Ukraine's fighter jet deals with both France and Sweden and what that means for the future of European security. Sebastian, Ukraine has signed a deal with France for 100 Rafale jets. What does this mean for Kyiv's long-term strategy?
First of all, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be returning to FO Talks, and it's especially a pleasure to be doing this for the first time with you. So thank you very much for the invitation. Yes, it's a deal that has been framed as nothing short of historic, but I would say we need to put it into a certain perspective. First of all, it's an LOE. It's a letter of intent that has been signed, and the idea is that this is going to turn into a long-term defense cooperation, as you have mentioned. And so the basis here is, yes, there is the intention of purchasing 100 Rafale jets from France, which at this stage means there is an intention, and it's a good sign that we are moving from the immediate needs of the defense capabilities of Ukraine and think in a more long-term perspective. But there is no immediate result coming from this intention at the moment.
Right, it's a long-term game plan that Ukraine is playing when it comes to the Rafales. But then you've also got a deal with Sweden for about 150 Gripen jets. How do both of these tie in?
So the first thing that we need to see here is it's very good that there are different options being explored that are also tying into the different needs. The fighter jets are fundamentally different. They have different operational roles. There are the Gripens can rather excel at like dispersed operations, and they have low maintenance environments, where the Rafales are heavier multi-role strike aircrafts. But I mean, I'm not super well versed in these military details. However, what it signals is that, on the one hand, again, there is a plan to cooperate over the next decade with different partners. And this is actually also something that is a good signal for the EU defense capabilities in general, because as you know, they are it's very nationalized, and we have very different systems and operations, and this is going to be a cross-border cooperation, and in an ideal sense, it would turn into more interconnected cooperation in the defense sector, not only within the European Union, but in Europe in general.
Right. I want to come back to the European defense industry later. I just want to do like a quick run through of what Ukraine is planning. So the war is almost 3 years in now, and Ukraine has received second-hand F-16 jets from the Netherlands, from Denmark, second-hand Mirage 2000 fighters from France, and now they've signed these two LOIs, let's call it. It's not deals yet, it's not confirmed, but that's where they're heading. 150 new Gripens and 100 new Rafales. But why all of this 3 years into the war? Is there a shift coming? Is there possibly an end game nearby? What are your thoughts and opinions on this?
So yeah, it's also if we need to understand, if you buy these jets, you of course also need to have personnel that is trained to operate them. And this is not something that is happening overnight. We have seen that with the F-16, because I mean they would have been needed very early in the war in order to defend the Ukrainian skies and the civilian population. This LOIs or this intention or whatever we want to frame it is not something that will immediately help here. This is not something that would enhance the defense capabilities, but rather is looking into the future, which is on the one hand side a signal, as you hinted a bit, that there is the idea that we need to sort of get Ukraine ready to defend themselves when whatever deal is reached.
Right.
Because I mean, one of the crucial aspects that we need to see, because if there is some sort of it's not going to be a peace deal, to be honest. It's going to be a ceasefire. Because in order to have a peace deal, we would need to have a just peace, and this is a discussion that I have had with Atul, and this I'm not going to open up this again, but the major point is going to be, I see in the foreseeable future that there will be at best a ceasefire, which might involve some territorial concessions, but an important aspect of this is going to be that Ukraine has defense capabilities that will deter, first and foremost, of course, Russia, but also any other actor that would want to attack the country. And this is something that goes into this future planning, because, I mean, the Air Force of Ukraine is of course, heavily depleted in the course of war. So they're investing in new capabilities, in new possibilities that would enable them to defend themselves in the future. So it's rather an investment in securing the ceasefire than leading to a potential ceasefire at the moment.
Sebastian, when I look at what's happened in the last 2 months when it comes to Ukraine's Air Force needs, I clearly see it as a win for Europe's security industry. I mean, an order for 150 Gripens, 100 Rafales, that's really big. Also, Ukraine is now being completely weaned away from Russian jets. Ukraine used to heavily operate Russian aircraft. It's now completely into the European and Western camp. But my main concern is, who's going to pay for these jets? Because Ukraine doesn't have the money, and whatever money they have, whatever aid they get, they instantly spend it for the war that they need. And these jets are going to take some time. The Gripens are going to take at least 3 years. The Rafales are going to come in a span of 10 years. Who's going to pay for them? And can Ukraine even pay for these jets?
Yeah, this is the billion-dollar question in that case, because as you rightly point out, Ukraine spends a significant portion of their GDP to defend themselves at the moment. And so this investment in the future security is something that they cannot immediately afford. At the same time, it's also not something that France can afford if we look at the situation regarding their GDP growth and also the economic situation that is not very bright at the moment, especially in Western European and Western EU member countries. Right. So one of the ideas here would be to hopefully find a joint effort, maybe even using money that can be put together on a cross-border or even EU level. And there is also another discussion that is still ongoing, which resurfaces from time to time, is to use the frozen Russian assets that are in Europe and the European Union. And so this is the idea, but this will be one of the crucial aspects to it, and this is why it's not a proper deal yet. Yeah? So there is it makes sense. It's a good step. And I think it's also a good sign that sort of, France tries to show and Sweden tries to show we believe that Ukraine will be able to defend themselves and we are contributing in an investment in the security of the future of this country. But the deal and the details have to be really ironed out, and one of the crucial aspects is going to be the big money question. Yeah.
Right. Now that I've brought up the big money question, I want to shift the topic a little bit more towards what's happening internally in Ukraine. We were speaking about this earlier, but a major corruption scandal has been unearthed, this time involving some of the close associates of President Zelensky himself. And I believe the corruption scandal is upwards of $100 million. Can you just quickly, briefly tell us what's really going on this front?
Yeah, this is, of course, I mean, in the overall situation, this is most unfortunate, and we need to really stress this is not a minor scandal. This is a major corruption case in a strategically vital sector. We have to see that this is directly affecting the population in Ukraine on the ground. It's a national security risk during wartime, and it's really something that is central, where the Russians are targeting civilian infrastructure and the energy infrastructure to really terrorize the civilian population. And then if this area is used, in order to secure or to provide some measures to secure that sector from these threats that are coming, if you use this to siphon off money, this is really not something that we can move on to day-to-day business, which has also not been the case. There have been consequences, but of course it's as you mentioned, very close to Zelensky himself.
Right.
The former minister for energy and now former minister of justice will face direct consequences out of this. There is again a cabinet reshuffle that is necessary, which is also already a challenging situation. Giving the necessity to operate under martial law in Ukraine, so it fuels it's heinous anyway that a corruption scandal in this area happens, but it of course also gives additional ammunition to those people who say, look, this country is fundamentally corrupt. We should not support them financially because everything is disappearing. And it gives fuel to the narratives that we also see coming from the Kremlin, that it's an illegitimate government that is operating only for themselves. Zelensky has seized power and he does whatever he wants, and it's not a democracy anymore. Right. So it's an overall very, very unfortunate picture that we're seeing here.
Right. So on one hand, you've got President Zelensky signing these LOIs for fighter jets. I mean, these are major military deals. But then you've got these corruption scandals emerging. How does that look for Ukraine when it is like going to Europe, when it's going to the US for more military aid, for more weapons? How does that reflect on Kyiv?
As I mentioned, it's very poorly in such a situation, and I have because I'm very known for very much supporting Ukraine, the Ukrainian people, and also through the experiences that I've had through my personal travels to the country over the past years, also since the full-scale invasion. And people now that have been skeptical, they send me messages and say, like, look, this is what I have suspected. This is why we should stop supporting immediately.
Right.
This doesn't make sense. So this is really challenging in that sense. On the other hand, and this would be my also answer to them, we have to acknowledge that this was actually uncovered. This is something that, nevertheless, that there is martial law. There is restriction of information. There is, of course, also the limited possibilities for journalists and media to operate. The anti-corruption body of Ukraine that is dealing with it and has uncovered that is actually functioning. That's proof of it, that they can do that job, that it can be uncovered, and that we also know about it, that it is reported and that it comes out. This is a very positive aspect. In all the really heinous behavior that we are seeing, is really something that we should stress, that it's a sign that the country is democratically functioning. Because, I mean, I don't want to downplay corruption, but there is corruption in major deals anywhere in Western Europe, in the US, anywhere there is, unfortunately, corruption involved. And it's sort of an open secret that these things, unfortunately, happen. They shouldn't happen. And this is why we have anti-corruption bodies that uncover this, and since it has been uncovered, which is really something, I'm pretty sure that there is major corruption going on in Russian weapons procuring in the Russian energy sector, but we just don't hear about it because it will not leak to the public, and there is not a functioning anti-corruption body. So on the one hand, of course, not a good image for President Zelensky. It really needs to have proper follow-up, and then also safeguarding that these things are not happening again in the future. On the other hand, it's a positive development of the country, I would say.
Do you think France and Sweden will reconsider their deals with Ukraine, and maybe even other European allies, or do you think that can be kept aside and the political support to Ukraine continues until there is at least a ceasefire or there is a stoppage of the war?
I don't think that an immediate stopping of support would be a result out of this, because I believe that there is an understanding in the governments also that, again, as I mentioned, that the mechanisms function, and I mean they have been threatened, and it's also not good optics for President Zelensky. That if we recall that earlier this year, there were actually demonstrations organized by the Ukrainian civil society against signing a law into practice. The Ukrainian civil society that was demonstrating against Zelensky signing a law that would put this anti-corruption body under the supervision of the general prosecution. It's not good optics, but that, as I mentioned, that it is actually uncovered, shows that the institutions are functioning. And I think that this will be acknowledged. A challenge is going to be, of course, that now populist parties and leaders will use this to run against supporting Ukraine and promise that this would be the end of the support. And if they come then into power, or are already in power in some countries, this, of course, will make the continuous support much more complicated, and this is really something that is that is potentially not a challenge immediately, but again, possibly down the road, the longer also this war will drag on.
Yeah, I think it's clear that the choices and actions that Ukraine takes are going to influence European security, European politics overall. Sebastian, thank you very much for speaking to Fair Observer and helping us make sense of what's going on in Ukraine, the defense deals, the corruption scandal that has emerged. Thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much. And until next time.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.